then I wouldn't be able to carry anything back. So if I walked.
It's not that busy at the market.
Oh, really?
No, apparently it's much better today than yesterday.
Yeah.
Well,
There's spots right out here.
really?
I think so.
No, those are usually taken by the market, aren't they?
Don't think so.
No, there's spots.
Oh, wow.
Hurry.
I would have rather come in person, but okay.
Yeah, as you can see, Lisa, we're now down to the old school at tabletop, not on the dais anymore. So
Yeah.
hopefully getting back to normal at some point.
Yeah, hopefully.
I have a question on this short-term rental permit list that's online. There's quite a few that are expired. Why are they on there?
They don't get taken, they just, basically they're being sent past due notices, and we don't take them off the list until the permit is officially closed.
Okay, I was just curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's updated monthly, so sometimes it just hasn't been updated because they haven't finished the processing. But if they're still there, we just haven't closed their permit totally yet, and we send out past due notices and fee fines and stuff until that gets resolved.
Yeah, and
It's only Sunday you can see the TV.
and so no, it's just not like it's not like a television show.
Careful these days about the trout, so.
Hey, well, on that note, one thing I did want to bring up. This will be Katie's last meeting. Yes, she is resigned to greener pastures. She's going to go back home. So she said, she was tired of working with me. I understood that. Katie, you got anything? You're going back to teach English.
Yeah,
In her old school.
I'll be teaching English at my high school.
Wow. And where's that at?
Coos Bay.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. So I'll be here until almost the end of September, the 23rd. But this will be my last round of meetings.
Well, you're gonna want to do Zoom, obviously.
Teachers don't make much.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna miss you.
Like we are.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'm just down to be able to tell people apart, okay? Then they start leaving.
Yeah. Okay, well, we did have a couple things kind of added to the agenda. I don't think we have to we're not formal enough, I don't think, to have to make amendments to the agenda. I put them on the slideshow. Jim, I put kind of your thoughts on your questions. And then we also have a letter that was submitted by Steve Waite, which is another good topic to talk about. And so really, if I get anything sent to me for the agenda, I'm always happy to kind of just go ahead and put it on there. I don't think we're formal enough. If once we get into maybe once we're starting to vote on things and things like that, you guys might want to adopt some more formal procedures on that.
Well, Jeff, I sent out a letter to the group from the Yah. It was just an article that was published in the Yahats paper that was really well written. Did it go through to people?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was in the Argonian this morning also.
Who was it? It was in the Oregonian. Yeah, it was a good letter. I just thought it was a good article. It seemed pretty factual and it was well written. So
Yeah.
Down in Vienna, there should be a limit. Like, I know it's hard to get people to be on it, but they should limit how many you can be on.
I think that's Mr. Ostrander's background.
who's talking? I can't hear.
There we go. Okay, that's got it. And Eric can raise his hand if he wants to speak at some point. But on that note, if somebody does want to put on the agenda, yeah, just let me know that, we'd like to talk about on the agenda so that I don't get them mixed up. But happy to bring up anything as well. And so I just want to kind of go through first off our normal slides just kind of update you on the where we are on complaints and other things that are updated here. And so we'll have Robert share the screen. Yeah, there we go. And
Sure, okay.
all right, next one there. And there's the agenda today. So we'll just kind of do an update of the latest code complaints so far. We've only got really up until I think August, so we'll have next month and others at the, I guess, our next meeting. We can update it. Maybe we'll just update it after we get everything through the Labor Day weekend, and we'll update these slides and put it out as a final edition for the, till this day through Labor Day. Okay, we'll go back to that real quick, okay? And then we're gonna policy updates. We'll go through some of the, I can kind of speak to some of the changes that are going on as far as around the county and stuff, the region. And then short-term rental legislative change, you started maybe start talking about some of the things that people have brought up, and we can start moving through some of those. And then organizational issues, I always throw that at the end there just in case you guys want to talk about changing the way we do these meetings. Because, if I were just bring back, I put on every agenda, I put the scope of work, the timing, the composition, the thing that came out of the marching orders, if you will, for this. And, and it's brought up occasionally, how many members and hey, how many alternates and the timing of the meetings, why we do this or why we're doing this. And if you remember, it was they wanted about 4 years worth of kind of data, and then to start looking at policy, if there were any policy changes we wanted. But, some of them come up along the way, and we put a few of those here today. And so we can start, I think in the next, I would say probably this winter is a good time to start bringing those together and start thinking about policies if we can change it. So next slide, please. So this is once again the mission and keep going. And this is on, all of this is available also on our website. If you didn't get to see my presentation on a lot of the data and stuff that's available through our website, I'll put a link to that when kind of the mail out after this, when we put out the audit. I'll put a link to that because you can watch my presentation and see all of the information that's out there. Our short-term rental task force information, all the meeting presentations and materials, which has all that yearly code audit data is out there. Next. Areas of analysis. This is that scope of work that I said. This is always good to just kind of see how we're doing. Are we collecting the data that you want to make decisions on, and how, and Jim's got some further questions we can talk about here in a minute. But these are all good areas to look at, and we'll talk about some of these today. Okay. And then keep going. So this is our current numbers. Right now we're at 202 permits. And if you'll see to the next slide, as you can see, we're staying below or staying right around that 200 line. And you'll see that change in the 14-day, 5-year, and the lifetime slowly shrinking, but that 5 is really started to cut back because of the freezing of that program. So next, that shows that percentage right there out of 100%. And you'll see that number probably continue over the next year as that aqua one kind of fades away until the city council decides what they want to do, if they want to continue and get rid of the 5-year, or if they want to continue it in some fashion or some number. That'll be up for them after your all's recommendations. Okay, next. So then getting into code complaints and violations. Robert, you want to talk about these? You're the ones who pulled the data together.
Sure. So this is based off of this year's total code enforcement reporting numbers. They have received a total of 107 complaints. 43 of those came internally, 64 were external. Of the 107 complaints, 3 involved short-term rentals. 1 was internal, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I do know that it was tagged as being resolved. The 2 external complaints were tagged as being unfounded, and at this time, there are no apparent active short-term rental related code enforcement complaints.
What happened to the other 101?
Well, they could be parking and stuff like that.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, these are
Okay.
specific to short-term rentals because there can be, because you have parking, overgrown lots, barking dogs, all the other things that code enforcement is going to deal with.
Touch broom.
That's for 'em.
Could I throw out a recommendation that we look at just the STR stuff separate? Because when you throw this all together, like 107 complaints seems like a lot, but the truth is there's only 3 towards the STR program, correct?
Correct.
Jim, that's why we show it in this fashion, so that you can see that it's very small percentage.
Yeah, I understand that, but and sometimes I think when other people see this that don't sit in on our meetings, they see that big number and they're gonna be, that's a lot of complaints towards STRs. We need to do something about it. But they don't dig any deeper into the numbers to see that it's really only 3.
When I first looked at that graph just now, that's what I presumed.
All right, well, excellent. We'll identify that on the next slide, I think, kind of.
As soon as I saw it, I looked at it for a
So
while.
see, if you go past the, so these are who reports them, okay? Citizens to self, which is the code official, finance department, public works, next. And you'll see, and so that's breaking that last down to internal, external. So next one. Then you can see how we were contacting. And then. Next. This is that different types, and you can see noise, vehicle, short-term rental is that 3 green one. So out of all of the complaints, only 3 are 2.9% are short-term rental.
Can I ask a question, Jeff?
Yeah,
How do we know, though, what part of those, for example, parking complaints, vehicle complaints, animal complaints are tied in with short-term rentals?
That's a good question.
because we have addresses. And so we verify those addresses aren't short-term rental addresses.
Well, it still could be counted as parking.
No,
because-
well, but that would still be identified short-term rental parking. Yeah,
That's
How would you know?
we do. We verify by the address.
So Jeff, just to clarify, if the address happens at a short-term rental, whether it's noise, whatever the complaint is, it happens at a short-term rental address, there's a registered short-term rental, then it falls into the short-term rental category,
Yeah,
no matter what the complaint is.
we do, yeah.
So everything that's not in a short-term rental didn't happen at a short-term vacation rental property.
Right.
Can I ask a crazy question on that note?
Yeah.
So,
Is this Bob?
It is.
yeah, it is, Jeff. Thank you. So, but let's just assume for a minute that somebody who has a short-term rental is not renting and it's actually the owner. That still falls into here. I mean, I know we're getting into the minutia, but I'm just asking.
Excuse me, well, if it's at a short-term rental property and, you mean, you're saying it's an illegal rent?
No, I'm saying that on some short-term rentals, an owner is also using that property from time to time. We're not alienating the individual. If there's a complaint against the owner in the short-term rental, that also falls here.
Yeah, it would fall under that short-term rental as well.
So if you have a short-term rental, Bob, you better behave.
Right. I get it. But we're not differentiating here. So, and I guess for the sake of what we're talking about, it doesn't matter anyway. I'm just trying to clarify. Thank you.
No, that's a good point.
And what period of time does this cover?
This is for the year so far from 2022, January 1st. Yeah.
Okay, so you're not counting multiple short-term rental complaints at one address still? If my neighbor calls in about a short-term rental at number 2 Wayside Road, and then I call in about the same one.
Oh, no, Luke says that they're separate now. So we have to hold him to that. He's not here today, so I can't defend, I'm not defending him, but that's what we clarified with him at our last meeting, and that's what we spoke to him about. So if he's not, I'll verify with it, but that is what we, if it's 3 and it's 1, at one property, which these 3 could be. But that's my understanding.
Okay, I just wonder when that was instituted. My understanding it was only instituted at the last meeting, so.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think it probably started in March or the last time we had our meetings.
Well, the amount of complaints is so minimal.
Yeah, we had none really prior, so I would think that these are pretty recent. And so we've also updated the map, short-term rental map. So if you want to go out there and verify that. And so then we got, Jim brought up these points. And so I hope this is okay, Jim. I just copied and pasted from your email. It says, prior to the new short-term rental rules versus after the new short-term rental rules by year. And so number 1, he would like to know number of each type of vacation home and TRT funding derived from them, 14-day, grandfathered, and lottery. This should be broken out by years since to see the overall effect. Number 2, I would like to see a breakout of churn in each category of homes that have moved or dropped between categories and the funding results of these changes. If needed, I would like to see the detail down to each home. This could be house 1, 2, etc. For anonymize it. B, this will also help have to incorporate the boom of lodging taxes that has taken place during the pandemic, which will show an increase in all rental amounts as a whole. And 3, this data should show and indicate the financial impact to the city, general fund, either positive or negative. If house 1 has dropped from rental, what is the loss? If house 1 became a 14-day instead of a nightly, what is the difference in TRT funding? And C, this should show year by year as well. And then the goal is to have all the data available to the short-term rental task force so that each member can evaluate it prior to the meeting. And so I ask our finance, we have our kind of community development gets none of this data. All we ever get is our audit data, which is what we collect. This community development department, we don't get any of the tax information or how much a unit gets. And so that's all goes to the finance department, which I am not privy to. And so I've asked our finance director if this is possible, 1 through 3. And she said, well, she doesn't believe so. But she will look into it. And so I will try to come back, and if that's possible, with an estimate of, some of this stuff. Now we can do kind of, just from our audit, how many nights per units per 14-day, 5-year unlimited, and kind of do estimates within the ballpark, which gives you probably a fairly good idea of, if this is in this program, how much taxes it's returning per year at this rate for each unit. It would be the average of it. And so I think we can kind of do that number, Jim, in that way. But are you looking for, like you said, truly down to each house level? That's going to take more, and it's going to take staff resources and stuff to do that. And I think I would come back to you guys if that's how you want your staff resources.
Well, the city gets the information from the vacation people.
all of that is provided to the city every quarter. So, you're making us do it.
Yeah, I don't.
Just
do it.
saying.
Yeah, I don't see that,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, I know you don't, but
I'm not,
the city does get it,
yeah, so.
and they get
Well,
it.
and I think from a but from a metric reporting standpoint, I mean, excuse the expression, garbage in, garbage out. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, Jeff, about we can get kind of ballparks, but to Linda's point, if the data's there, you know, I think part of the mission of this task force is to determine, you know, what the final results are. But, you know, these are metrics that we're going to be looking at going forward, or whoever is looking at them. And, you know, the more knowledge we have to make decisions based on this metric reporting, the more confident we can all feel that these decisions are sound. So I would agree with Jim and with Linda that we should be doing it. But again, to your point, Jim, until you tell us, what does that mean? Is it just staff resources to set it up, or is it ongoing quagmire of staff resources?
Yeah. This was like the last thing on the list that we were given, is to see what the financial effects of this were. And this was the things I could think of that would help us determine that. And there may be other things that you guys think of that might cover this as well, but I'm sure that I agree with that. The finance department has this data because they get it from each of the properties. It's just a way of the staff time to sort it out. And if they need help figuring that out, I'd be happy to help jump in on that. But I don't have any of the raw data to do any of the thing. And I'm sure that the city, legally, I would be surprised if they would want to share that raw data.
Well, yeah.
So I just need to figure out how we get that information.
Yeah, if it's there, like you said, down that unit level, here's my question. What is that going to give you? What are you at a unit level? I mean, you know the tax, you know what's coming in, right? And if you know, if you got the ballpark of 14 versus 5-year versus whatever, I mean, why do you need it at the unit level?
If you go back, go ahead, Bob.
I'm sorry, Jim. I'm actually, but I agree with Jim. And I think the question goes back one step further, Jeff. If Linda's perspective is all this data is being given to the city, I would take one step backward, and I'd like to see one of those reports. I'm assuming we can take a look at that. And to your point or question, Jeff, until we look at data, we don't know sometimes what we are looking for until it's right in front of us. If the city has collected this information, obviously the city, I would assume, has been collecting it to try to create a picture for their navigation. We're trying to understand the impact of all this. And if we looked at a report, we'd maybe even realize there are things we're not even looking at now, but based on, filling in some of these blocks, we're going to realize, well, this is really great. And now we're missing this and that. So going back to what Jim's saying, I think step one would be to look at the data you're collecting so we get a sense on what's being asked of the vacation rentals. Then once we look at that, I think it goes to validate Jim's point. We're trying to get down to the minutia because we should be able to speak to percentages and numbers and not ballparks, but exact. Because sometimes decisions have to be that exacting. At least that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I understand that. Here's my problem with that line of thinking, because the other impacts, like the neighborhood impact from too many short-term rentals, is not quantifiable in the same way that the amount of revenue coming in is. So then you're left comparing apples and oranges, because there's no way to quantify the negative effects on a neighborhood or a street from too many short-term rentals.
And I wouldn't disagree with you, Lisa. As a matter of fact, I would agree with you. But on that same note, and excuse my analogy, but if I'm testing somebody's recipe and I make a bunch of changes before I make the recipe exactly the way it's written, I don't know what variable, whether it's mine or theirs, that made the recipe go awry. So if we're looking at all the data, and then we also bring in some of the squishy stuff of what's the impact on a community, which when I say squishy, I don't mean it disrespectfully. I think it's important, but we need to have all the data And then at least we know those variables can be consistent. Now let's look at the stuff that isn't, and we make sound decisions. But we shouldn't ballpark if we have data. We should only ballpark if we don't have data. And that's a good example, I think.
I agree with that.
Well, if I can get the data, you know me, I'll get the data. So give me something more to deal with. right?
It's there, Jeff. You can get it.
Well, and how difficult would it be for you to, since you sent it in once, to send that file in to Jeff?
Oh, don't go there. man.
Okay.
It might be nothing, I'm not gonna last.
One company.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's really not that big a deal for us. Once it's done, and we just copy it and send it. But there are proprietary interests that have to be considered. And, you know, we would have to get approval from homeowners to do more than what we do, for sure.
Okay.
Unless the city tells us it's a
I
requirement.
better be able to get it.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I'm just trying to find a way to get it.
Yeah.
Well, the city has it.
I mean,
So if the city can share it within the city rather than ask us to duplicate, that's
Yeah.
probably a wise choice.
yeah, because I don't, honestly, I don't for tax reasons, what's public property and what's not. That's.
Yeah,
But I do think, I think you mentioned, you do have to take out the pandemic years, because I do think we were so much busier.
Oh, the pandemic years have been unbelievably
And so
different.
we've got to go from A to D and compare.
We're looking at 2019 numbers for now. Roughly, a little better than
I
2019.
was wondering how the summer looked for.
Yeah, the summer's been great,
Uh-huh.
but I think it's gonna be a little better than 2019 by the time we're done.
But it's not gonna be.
But because prices have advanced mostly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there'll be some shift, but we're kind of looking more to 2019 than 2020, 21 for comparison years.
Right. I feel like.
And Linda, can I
Yeah.
ask you a question? Because I think that's a good point, but as somebody who owns a different type of business, sometime in the future, even if it's 10 years from now, everyone's going to say, yeah, during the pandemic, the short-term rentals were crazy. But if you're a different business and you're trying to understand the impact of other businesses, even though we don't need to use it for comparison purposes, it's good to have that data available, because you never know when you're going to need it. And if you don't get it now while it's active, live, and in the forefront, we might not ever get it back.
I agree with you 100%, Bob.
Yeah. Yeah, so thanks, Jim and Bob, and I will do my arm twisting. And if when I get it, or if I get it, I'll let you guys know and get you an update as soon as possible. Then the next slide, please. Yeah, so we also were given an email from Steve Waite, which everyone here has, but what I'm going to go ahead and read it, because I don't think we sent it out to people today, and I should have done that. But here it says, "Dear Director Adams, I'm unable to attend today's short-term rental task force meeting. Please impart the following comments to the task force on behalf of residents of Cannon Beach. I propose prohibiting fire pits and short-term rental properties for the following reasons: reduce air pollution, especially in the neighborhoods where the smoke can become very concentrated. The lot size in Cannon Beach is small, no matter where a fire pit is placed on a small lot. It is close to the property line. Fire pit smoke is not dispersed like chimney smoke. The chimney emits the smoke above the roof line, so it is less apt to enter the home and is more effectively dispersed. Smoke from the outdoor fire pits enters nearby homes, making it impossible to keep windows open during the evening. Most Cannon Beach residents don't have air conditioning and need to open windows for cooling. Persons with lung sensitivity are adversely affected by particulate matter that is contained in wood smoke. Reduce the fire risk of property damage due to fire and smoke. Reduce the cost to short-term rental owners, some of whom keep wood for an indoor fireplace. The renters use the wood for outdoor pit. Visitors have the option of building a fire on the beach where the smoke is dispersed before entering neighborhoods. I believe this is a quality of life issue for residents of Cannon Beach, and that many visitors don't consider the effect their outdoor fire has on surrounding neighbors. Ironic that many visitors to Cannon Beach come to escape air pollution, smoke, and heat of their city, but find it perfectly acceptable to pollute the air in Cannon Beach. Let's suggest that if visitors want to enjoy a fire, that they do so on the beach where the smoke is dispersed before entering the neighborhoods. Thank you for the opportunity of presenting these comments. Many of my Cannon Beach friends and neighbors have expressed concern for years about smoke created by frequent use of outdoor fire pits by short-term visitors. And respectfully, Steve Wright, P.O. Box 1051 Cannon Beach. And so, oh, thanks. And so if you go back to that slideshow, I've got the code. This is our code, and we don't have any prohibition for fires for short-term rentals, but we do have what's called recreational fire standards in our ordinance, and that Title 8 there, recreational fire shall comply with the following standards, shall not exceed 3 feet in any dimension, combustible materials, grass, brush, trees, bark, dust shall not be within 5 feet of the fire perimeter or within 10 feet above the fire. 3, recreational fire shall not be within 10 feet of any building or structure. 4, recreational fire shall be fueled by clean wood only. And B, recreational fires do not require a burn permit or are allowed during the no burn season unless prohibited by fire district. So the next slide. So that's a recreational fire. Then there's some limits. They must be attended. It says, except for beach fires, that's B. A competent person responsible for the fire shall have a garden hose connected to a water supply or other fire extinguishing equipment readily available for use. And open fires larger than 3 feet in any dimension except for yard debris fires with a burn permit are prohibited within Cannon Beach, including its ocean shore. So
I have to say that the only fire pits I know are people who live here full time. I don't have any in our rentals.
Well, he does live by a short-term rental. I know him, and he does.
So there may be a,
So we might,
Yeah,
I think
I know I don't have any.
wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want it in yards. No, but I do know several local people. And so locals use them for sure.
They all have fire pits there.
Yeah, so this, he's proposing it just for short-term rentals. Short-term rentals. So,
Jeff, do these rules apply to all homes in Cannon Beach, regardless of whether they're rental or?
okay, so the ordinance that I have up there do, right? But he is suggesting that we just limit short-term rentals to not have fire pits.
Wouldn't this be a code enforcement issue for to be reported on and have action taken against, regardless of whether it's a short-term or a resident?
It definitely would, yes. So any of these kind of legislative changes always come with that provision that you can put as many laws or regulations on things, but there's got to be somebody out there to enforce it. And like you said, we only have one code official right now. Not to say the police don't report or don't follow up on these things, but we have one code official that we currently have. So not to say that you can't do legislative changes, but that's part of the equation that, of course, the city council will take into account if you guys recommend these kind of changes.
I'm thinking if the short-term rentals are being picked on for this particular reason, it should be citywide.
Well, and a barbecue,
Exactly.
like with those briquettes, they're smellier than fire.
Yeah, so
Yeah, so anyhow.
I think it's singling out unfairly to one group because he has a neighbor.
But do we have does he have the ability to call code enforcement and say, I can't open my windows, they're doing this, and they can they shut a specific fire down?
If
If it's like 10 feet.
If it does,
Yeah.
yes, exactly.
Yes,
If it violates any of these standards, they can, but not if it's just simply smoke coming in.
Do we add it, something that says if the smoke is so
There-
profound that it's disturbing the neighbors?
Yeah.
That's kind of a judgment.
I don't think the smoke isn't, I mean, if you're on a 50 by 50 lot or 50 by 100 lot, and your next door neighbor has a fire pit, the smoke is going to be profound to the next door neighbor. I mean, that's what I mean, I don't see any way around that. It seems like it's a bigger issue. Do we want fires burning or not? And like, I don't think, I agree that we can't just say, no, short-term rentals can't do it. I think it would have to be a broader thing if we were ever going to do it. You know, I understand his point of view very much. I don't know.
Especially the summertime.
Well,
Absolutely.
I would suggest possibly is, we can also, you can track that. And so you could say your code official in one of those little percentages diagrams, how many reports we're getting on those. And you guys look at that over the next year and see how many fire issues you get.
We could always, you could also look at it as, back to what you were saying, I think it was Lisa, that if someone's got a grill, you could differentiate between grilling and a fire pit. Grilling is going to be fairly quick. You light it, you cook, you're done. Whereas the fire pit is generating more smoke. I mean, are we talking about nobody can have a fire pit unless it's gas or propane? That wouldn't produce really any fumes or any smoke.
The complaint one? The one with the various.
Well, if you have one of the solo stoves, they don't really have smoke either. That radon.
Yeah.
Right.
See, I don't see anything that would track into that right now.
Air quality isn't on your list.
Yeah.
Noise is.
Noise, we've had a couple of those, and I remember over the past years, we had noise occasionally, but very few. I don't know of any others with the smoke, honestly. So I think it's maybe, you know, something we just track through our complaints and see if we see that as a issue.
Well, in my guess is some of them are too close to the building and some of them are burning garbage and ones that are already rules.
And we can ask Steve if he's even registered that as a complaint, and they could at least go verify that.
I would say, I'm hesitant to complain about things if I don't think they're a valid complaint. And if he recognizes it is a valid complaint.
Yeah.
Then we'll have more next year.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really a good point, because a lot of times you feel like complaining. I don't have this problem, but most people do.
That's why we love you, Lisa.
She's our inner child.
You might feel, you know, you have trepidation about complaining because you think, well, you know, can I complain about this? You know, a dog barking even in your neighborhood over and over and over again through the night. You think, well, am I allowed to complain about this? A lot of people don't know that they can.
Right.
And it's a good point. And sadly, I've called the police with a complaint and I'll say, tell me if this is legitimate or not, because I feel a little stupid, but it's loud or whatever. Yeah. But on that note, Lisa or Jeff, if somebody was complaining about the smoke, as we look at the complaint type, would that just come under property and then you have to dig down to find it? Because you don't have a category.
Well, that's the thing, you know, we have, this is just to ballpark them into good usable categories, you know, I mean, I think that there's probably, there's the broader, like you said, Bob, that like maybe property might contain something like that, but each report's much more detailed than that, right? So I'm trying to, with this kind of categorization, we're trying to kind of compile the ones into the appropriate ones. And so I'll look, we can look through that. We keep a pretty detailed list on each complaint. And that way, from now on, we can really see if there's any under that. I just don't recall any looking at the spreadsheet, but I'm happy to look at it.
Okay, thanks.
Well, I wish EVO would have more fires in their pizza ovens, Bob.
Yeah, amen.
And the secret to that is make sure your neighbors all get free pizzas, then they don't complain. So it works.
So does anybody else have any other of the, you know, kind of legislative issues? And then I'll follow up at least on the policy stuff after that. So if not, let me just touch on the policy. I know that at least The last I saw, the Clatsop County had allowed, pretty much short-term rentals throughout the county, in the unincorporated areas, except for with the Arch Cape, there is one section that they're not.
Cove Beach. or something.
Yeah, that they're allowing, limited ones in that area, but the rest of it's, they're, and so.
Arch Cape is already established with vacation
Yeah.
rentals. That's already a done deal. It was done 20 years ago.
And so then there's also there was a petitioner, that someone has put forward to.
There's a referendum
Yeah,
out right
referendum.
now. Yeah.
And so I guess that's the next step for Clatsop County. And then we have met with the Affordable Workforce Housing Task Force, has had 2 meetings. We just had one last week. And that is moving forward. And I think pretty good progress on that. We will have monthly meetings with them for at least the next few months and see where we get on policies on affordable workforce housing. Our code audit meets tomorrow night, the joint session of that group. I think it's the 5th meeting of the joint session or a number. And so this one is to go over the code audit, the structure of the code audit. And I think next month is the actual document, which will be rolled out in weekly installments so people can kind of digest it over the next month.
So are you saying that the code audit, that people have been making corrections to it over the last year? I mean, you always mention it and I never know what's going on.
Yeah. So what they've done is part of the code audit process is to say, here's the issues between your comprehensive plan and the guidance of the comprehensive plan and what your zoning ordinances are, right? That's the gap they're trying to correct. And so now they're going to show us kind of what the problems are between the two and a roadmap for correcting those. And so that's what this meeting will be about. And then over this next month, there's going to be, I think, weekly installments of those different code audit changes. So
over the last year, I hear in a lot of the meetings that you say, the code audit will take care of that.
we hope it.
I mean, this, and I keep thinking, is someone writing down what Jeff said they're gonna fix?
Yeah, that's what this is.
Okay. all
Yeah,
right.
so
That makes
it's
sense.
like a detailed spreadsheet.
Okay.
And so Marcy will be here from Herb's Work to go through that tomorrow. And then the TSP plan, parking and transportation plan. That was recommended from the Planning Commission, and we'll go to the City Council for a work session. I think next month. So those are the progress on those different policies. And then anything else from you guys, at least as far as organizational issues or anything you all wanted to talk about for this meeting?
I think we've given you a great task for next meeting.
And Katie will be leaving this weekend. So.
Hurry, Kate, hurry.
Well, I don't let me see any of the financial.
Yeah. Okay, well, anything else, anybody? Or are we let's just go enjoy this weather.
Okay. Works for me.
All right, anybody, anything? Tim, anything?
Nope, not for me.
Okay, well, you guys have a good day. Thanks for showing up today. It's tough out with weather like this. So we will hopefully will have that data for you, Jim, as soon as possible. I will update as soon as we get with Luke after this Labor Day weekend, and we'll update all of those complaint things. And we'll also, I'll just send an email to see if there is anything on fire related in any of that. Okay.
Are we still anticipating our next meeting for December 6th?
Yeah, so that'll be the first Tuesday of that month.
Yep.
Okay. All
And
right.
the compliance, he doesn't work on Tuesdays.
Yeah, yeah, and so he, we've invited him to these.
Right.
And
He has to come on his day off.
Yeah, but, you know.
It's summer, can you blame him?
Yeah,
no, I
maybe
wouldn't
next one he will, but we can talk him into it. Yeah.
Well, or maybe you could trade an afternoon
Another
or
day.
something.
That's what we did last time.
Right. After our last meeting, when I got home, we had an email, I think, Tim, you were on it. From Leah. Somebody,
Oh, probably, that's Randy and Neil problem.
yeah,
Randy
well,
Neal,
yeah,
yeah.
Randy Neal forwarded it, and it has quite a few things we might wanna look at next time, because we got it after our last
See the
meeting.
date of that one, or just,
Oh, is that the stuff that I published on STRs? I don't think
It's an email
Yep, it's
to Leah, from Leah to Tim.
Yeah.
Jeff. And Randy had forwarded, I think.
yeah, it looks like from Randy to, yeah, I think so.
What does it say?
Yeah, I'm not sure I
Well,
received it.
it's quite,
It is dated, June 2nd.
I feel like I got it like when I walked home from the meeting,
and it's red, black ink,
and green.
and people respond, they wrote to each
Yeah,
other.
Tim, I think it's your post is what it's from or something.
Well, I'd like to see it. I don't know if I've seen it.
I can forward it to you.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
I'd
forward
like
it.
to see it too.
And Jean forwarded.
Forward it to me too, since I'm being talked about. I don't know what.
It was forwarded to me, so I don't
From
know.
Randy.
Yeah, from Randy.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
I'll send this out to everybody.
You can have mine since you're not on the, because I can print it again.
All
Okay.
right, thank you, guys. Have a good day.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jeff.
Uh,
Lisa?